Welcome, and thank you for joining us at All Points Fasteners University. This primer is on self-drilling screws, also called TEK screws, our number one seller. Self-drilling screws are often called TEK screws, self-tapping screws, pro points, bit tip screws, and drill screws. The most common uses for TEK screws are commercial heating and air conditioning ductwork, metal roofing. With metal roofing, a lot of times they want the screws with the heads painted, which we do, carports, barns, and pipe corrals. Let's start with the diameter of the screw. Think of it like a dress size. The bigger the number, the thicker the shank. So a number 10 shank will be thicker than a number 8. Sometimes you won't know what shank size you need, but with the right information, it'll be pretty easy to figure that out, at least with hex-headed screws. To help you determine the shank size of a hex-headed screw, measure across the flat of the head of the screw. It's going to be one of three measurements: 1/4 inch, 5/16, or 3/8. Unlike zip screws, TEK screws have only two options for shank sizes with a 1/4 inch hex head: number 6 and number 8. Again, number 8 shanks are more popular than number 6. 5/16 hex drive will either be a number 10 or a number 12 screw shank. In the heating and air conditioning industry, it'll probably be a number 10. Some companies do like number 12s, but 99.9% of the time, they will want a number 10 shank. The easiest is a 3/8 hex drive, number 14 screw shank. The 16 in the above example 10-16 by 3/4 refers to the threads per inch, also referred to as TPI. To determine the length of a hex-headed screw, measure from underneath the head of the screw to the tip of the screw. Contractors will often ask for self-tapping screws when they want TEK screws or self-drilling screws. Now, TEK screws and self-drilling screws are self-tapping, but that has everything to do with the threads and nothing to do with the point of the screw. When they ask for a self-tapping screw, it's extremely important that you ask them what the point of the screw looks like. Does it look like a drill bit tip, or does it look like a needle point? Here are the two different types of points. Both will be called self-tappers. If somebody asks for a self-tapping screw, ask them what the screw looks like. Does it have a point like a pencil? Or does it have a point like a drill bit? Self-tapping screws. What does that mean? The easiest explanation is that a self-tapping screw does not need matching female threads, such as what you see in a nut. It will tap its own threads in the material it is being drilled into. Drill bit screws, also known as TEK screws, have 4 TEK points. The most popular would be the number 2, which comes on the number 8 screws, and the number 3. When you start getting into number 4 and number 5 TEK points, those screws are generally used for going through thicker metals. Note that the threads stop further up the shank of the screw on the number 5 drill point compared to the number 3 drill point. This is so that the actual drill bit on the screw is longer. The longer drill bit allows the screw to drill through the thicker metal before the threads of the screw actually engage. Both the number 4 and the number 5 drill points are designed to drill through thicker metals. A lot of times contractors will call these screws super screws. The reason that you don't want the threads to engage while the drill bit is still drilling through the metal is that once the threads engage, the threads will be drilling into the screw faster than the drill bit can drill through the thicker metal. This is also why they make the threads on these number 4 and number 5 TEK points finer. As the drill bit very slowly is drilling through the metal, once the threads do catch, instead of the back of the screw turning an 1/18 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch each time the screw turns, as it would if it were a 16 threads per inch or 18 threads per inch screw, now it has 24 threads per inch. So it turns much slower, and this way the front end and the back end of the screw will be turning at the same time, so that the front end and the back end aren't turning slower and faster and causing the screws to snap. When there are 16 threads per inch on a screw, each time the screw turns, the screw will go into the material a 1/16 of an inch. If there are 24 threads per inch, every time that the screw is turned, the screw will turn into the material 1/24 of an inch. Okay, final time. Let's get started. How many drill bit sizes are there? There are 4 drill bit sizes. Number 2, this would be on your number 8 screws. Number 3, these would be your number 10 and 12, number 14 screws. Number 4 and number 5, a lot of times contractors will ask for these as super screws. Why will a number 2 or a number 3 TEK screw break when it's being drilled into thicker metal? The screw will snap because the front of the screw will be drilling into the material slowly as it drives through the material to cause, drilling its own hole. And then the threads of the screw will engage, and all of a sudden the back of the screw will be driving in faster than the front of the screw because it's still drilling through the metal, and the screw will snap. Are self-drilling screws used in residential work or commercial work for the HVAC industry? Self-drilling screws, also called TEK screws, are used in commercial HVAC ductwork. How do you measure a hex head screw to find out what magnetic hex chuck you need to use? You measure across the flat of the hex head. What are the 3 sizes of hex drives available? Quarter inch, 5/16, and 3/8 inch. With self-drilling screws, what 2 shank sizes have a quarter inch hex head? Number 6 and number 8. What 2 shank sizes have a 5/16 head? Number 10 and number 12. What shank size has a 3/8 hex head? Number 14. How do you measure the length of a hex-headed screw? You measure from underneath the head of the screw to the point of the screw. What makes a screw self-tapping? The screw taps or cuts its own thread into the wood or metal versus needing a nut. What a great job. You get an A plus. And thank you. Join us for the next primer, self-drilling screws at All Points Fasteners University.